Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Yes,
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Everyone is waiting for your class because we like your class and we follow actually. Many of us follow your Facebook.
Oh, thank you so very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So we are top of the hour actually. We can start and just I will take 2 minutes, Prabhu.
Sure. Yes.
And yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna to everyone. Today is Sunday, 27th of June, 2021. On behalf of ISKCON Scarborough, I would like to welcome each one of you to 15th successive month of virtual classes. We have had respected ISKCON Maharajas and ISKCON Brahmacharis from different countries of the world, and they gave classes for ISKCON Scarborough. Today we are very blessed to welcome back His Grace Rohinipriya Prabhu for giving another fascinating class for ISKCON Scarborough devotees.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. We know everyone is eagerly waiting for Prabhu's class because his well-crafted words touch our hearts, leading to spiritual development. Although academically Prabhu graduated as an MD, or Doctor of Medicine, he dedicated his life to control the mind, which is very difficult, as Arjuna stated in Bhagavad Gita 6.34. He has been doing this wonderful and difficult job since 1990s and has been leading many towards the spiritual path inspired by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Before Prabhu starts this class, a couple of things to remind you that the class will continue for 1 hour and all the classes on Scarborough are posted on our website, YouTube, Facebook, and WhatsApp group. Please also check Prabhu's classes on Facebook. He gives classes in Hindi and English. Please come up with a few questions so that Prabhu can answer all the questions in last 15 minutes. And thanking to each and every one of you, I would like to request His Grace Rohinipriya Prabhu to give another fascinating class today. Over to you, Prabhu.
Thank you so very much, Hare Krishna. And I really feel humbled by the wonderful words of description that you've used for me. Personally, I think it is the affection of the wonderful devotees around the world, and especially at ISKCON Scarborough, that keeps me very much enthused. And I also am very much inspired always to serve all the devotees at ISKCON Scarborough. I have many friends there. So thank you very much, Hare Krishna. And I'll just chant Mangalacharan to invoke auspiciousness, and then I'll begin my class. I'm sorry, this time I could not forward a topic for the class. The topic that I've chosen is a quote from a wonderful saintly personality. And the quote is, a part of the quote is, the evil eye and the foul tongue. So that would be the topic of the class today, the evil eye and the foul tongue. So with that, I will chant Mangalacharan and then we'll enter, or we will start the class. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, the evil eye and the foul tongue. I found this interesting quote, which was given by um, a great person, a great saintly personality. He has written a book on the chanting of the holy names, His Holiness Mahanidhi Swami. And within that, he says that uh, in Krishna consciousness, or as intelligent humans, when we realize that Krishna consciousness is very, very essential, we try to dedicate our lives to chanting the holy names of Krishna. And indeed, chanting of the holy names of Krishna is a wonderful benediction. Simply by chanting the holy names of Krishna, one achieves the results of all pious credits and beyond that one would have achieved by following all the processes that are recommended in the Vedas. All of them together accrue similar benefits as one gets by chanting the holy names of Krishna. So it is indeed a great fortune to be able to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When the tongue gets used to chanting the names of Krishna, then the tongue is also very, very eager to describe the glories of Krishna. And where would the tongue get the material to describe the glories of Krishna? How would the tongue get material to describe the glories of Krishna? When we faithfully hear and we faithfully meditate on what we have read in the scriptures, or we try and understand the teachings of the scriptures. So personal reading and hearing from well-read personalities or realized personalities gives us the subject matter for the tongue to speak. And it is important that the tongue speaks about subject matters that purifies one's consciousness. The tongue is just a tiny bit of flesh. However, it can very much affect the direction in which the journey of our life goes. Just as a small piece of wood in the form of a rudder can change the direction in which a huge ship goes. Similarly, the tongue has that capacity to make us go ahead on the path which is beneficial for one. Therefore, it is very essential that we find good subject matters for the tongue to be engaged in. And the tongue is inspired to speak about that which the mind is meditating on. So it is very important for us to have the mind constantly thinking about or as much as possible, thinking about Krishna's glories and Krishna's qualities. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the glories of Krishna's qualities and the glories of the Supreme Lord's activities are wonderfully described. This material world is a world where those who have knowingly or unknowingly committed certain cardinal sins get an opportunity to reform. So, if we use that opportunity to reform, then the material world helps us do that. This world is where one can reform our ideas or our conceptions, reform or again establish the correct conceptions and ideas. Otherwise, the material world can be a very dreary place, very dangerous place. It leads us to repeated births and deaths. So, for us who have this opportunity to reform ourselves, we realize that the only reason we have this opportunity is because we made mistakes. We committed certain sins. We committed certain, or we engaged ourselves in certain activities which reflected the misuse of our independence, the independence to love God. We misused that. Or the independence to be totally satisfied in rendering loving service to Krishna, that was misused. So in that sense, we are sinners, and we are trying our best to reform. And everything in this material world helps us to do that, helps us to remember that we should use every opportunity to become Krishna conscious, and that is a process of reformation. So the Bhagavatam states in the second canto, Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yadikshanam, yad vandanam, yat shravanam, yadarhanam, lokasya sadho vidhunoti kalmasham, tasmai subhadra shravase namo namaha, tasmai subhadra shravase namo namaha. When a person who is kalmasha purna, who is having an unclean heart because of the past, because in the past we were not so much in knowledge, so in ignorance, we collected a lot of unclean things and let it accumulate in the heart. So now we want to cleanse the heart. Tasmai Subhadra Shravase. That great personality unto whom we should again and again be offering obeisances, Namo Namaha, who is Lord Krishna. Subhadra Shravase, performing all acts that brings about auspiciousness is of paramount importance. So what are those acts? Yat Kirtanam, glorification of Krishna. Yat Smaranam, remembrances and meditation on Krishna and Krishna's qualities, Krishna's mercy, Krishna's pastimes. Yadikshanam, with the eyes, reading the glories of Krishna, with the eyes, seeing the beautiful form of Krishna as a deity, with the eyes, seeing the devotees who are engaged in serving Krishna. Yadvandanam, offering prayers and supplication to the Supreme Lord. Yat Shravanam, hearing about the Lord and the Lord's devotees and the wonderful relationship that they have. Yat Arhanam, and worshipping the Supreme Lord. with whatever means we have, with all our senses, worshipping the Supreme Lord. So this is Tasmai Subhatra Shravase. This brings about auspiciousness. These activities are activities that bring about auspiciousness. And what is the auspiciousness? Vidhunoti kalmasham. So kalmasha purna. We are having unclean hearts. We have a lot of unclean things or emotions within the heart. Aspirations, unclean aspirations within the heart. Unclean ambitions within the heart. When we say unclean, we also mean unnecessary, which are not really required and which are not really essential and beneficial for us. So, Krishna consciousness in its various forms is such a great benediction. Like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his presence is like the benediction moon. Yes, Chaitanya Chandra, the moon of supreme benediction. Namo Mahabadanyaya, the most benevolent Lord. So we have this opportunity, yes, and we have the knowledge. There are challenges. The challenges are within us and without us, isn't it? There's an English saying that you must keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer, which basically means that one must know one's enemy well. One must know one's challenges and obstacles well. At the same time, that is not all that we meditate on. We also keep our friends very close to us. So we keep the process of purification as the center of our lives, the center of this human form of life. At the same time, we also keep out an eye for the challenges and the obstacles. A sincere soul, which most of us are, I am still trying to be there, but I am sure that most of the members of the audience are very sincere. A sincere soul is very alert, always alert. Just as we see so many examples in so many other species of life, like birds or animals. Let's take the example of the sparrow or any other bird. As they're going about their affairs in this material world, they're always alert to danger. We look out, we may see the animals in the wild, like the deer, or even those that are mighty powerful, like the wild cats, the monkeys. As they are trying to have their ends meet, trying to work in this material world, do what is necessary, they also are constantly being alert to any kind of danger, to any kind of opportunities. So alertness is in terms of being aware of danger, and it is also to be aware of opportunities. So a sincere soul is always alert, like most of you are. And therefore, most of you are eager to use every opportunity that you get, consciously use every opportunity that we have to focus on our practice of Krishna consciousness. We need to be involved in so many other affairs, in our family or at work, or just waiting for the bus, or just waiting for the lockdown to be over. So there are so many things that are on the mind. As sincere practitioners, most of us, we are eager uh, to use most of the opportunities that we have to advance in our Krishna consciousness. And that is how a devotee is. Nottama shloka vartanam jushatam tat kathamritam syat sambhramonna kalepi smaratam tat padambujam. Those who have dedicated their lives to the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead, of whom the Vedas sing gloriously, and who are constantly engaged in remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, they do not run the risk of having misconceptions even at the last moment of their lives. So you see, such alertness, such awareness leads to great benefits. Uttama shloka vartana. This sincerity, this eagerness to use most of the opportunities, if not all of the opportunities that we have, to hear about Krishna. And even the Vedas, which are so glorious, even they sing the glories of Krishna. They sing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this sincerity pays off. Because you see, at the last moment of our life, the situations are such that we can very easily be bewildered. There are so many things that are happening within us. Technically speaking, according to the Ayurveda, there are so many forces of the life airs within a body that are being pushed by time to make us leave the body. You know, sometimes when we feel choked, like really severely choked, you know, there is some pressure on the air pipe, either because of internal suffocation or external suffocation. The way we try and fight with it. So that multiplied so many times is the moment of leaving the body or the moment of death. And it is not just that one single moment. It lasts for a few moments. It builds up because all of that is happening within the body. The life airs are really, really becoming very powerful. And this is the influence of time. Time is really pushing them strongly so that they leave the body. And along with that, the soul also leaves the body or death. So this eagerness, this alertness throughout the journey of life uh, gives us such rich benefits, such a great boon that even at the last moment of our lives, we do not run the risk of having misconceptions. Sat sambhramo antakalepi. Sambhramo antakalepi. There's no sambhrama even at the antakala. These words of the scriptures really, really, really um, enthuse one and keeps one excited in Krishna consciousness. As I said, alertness and awareness in this material world also makes us also makes us notice the dangers that are there. And therefore, the quote about the evil eye and the foul tongue. The quote goes as follows. What is the use of reading Shastra and chanting Hare Krishna if one keeps an evil eye and a foul tongue? The eye has to do with vision, and the tongue has to do with action. Or when we speak of the I, then generally um, um, uh, in an analogous way, we refer to being visionary, because the eye sees, not just the eye does not just see that which is in front of it, but the eye can also analyze and see that is which is beyond. Anuman. And the tongue, um, when the tongue is used, typically the tongue it initiates action or karma. Do this, do that. I am hungry. I'm going to read. I feel like this. So it initiates action or karma. So there is vision and there is action. However, a foul tongue and an evil eye. An evil eye means the visionary power of the eye is succumbing to certain powerful forces. And the ability of the tongue to initiate good action is being checked by forces that are foul. So there is evilness and there is foulness. And if there is evilness and if there is foulness, then they are obstacles. They are distractions. They bring about misconceptions. And they create dual emotions within us. And we land up in the realm of duality. I feel bad because that person is bad. I feel emotionally weak because the situation is very difficult. So here we see how we land up into duality. I don't want to feel like that, but I'm feeling it, therefore there's duality. So these misconceptions arise. Now, Krishna consciousness, basically, which means hearing about Krishna from the scriptures and chanting Hare Krishna, the holy names, um, they are kind of um, um, slowed down. They are made to slow down. And that the momentum that is there is pulled back to greater or larger extent by the evil eye and the foul tongue. And what is the evil eye? The evil eye is the vision of where we consider somebody to be an enemy. You see, an enemy is a person that you would love to defeat, you would love to hate, you would love to beat up, you would love to, or you would want to put down. Now, the human energy, when used for these purposes, is actually a kind of waste. Human energy is a kind of waste like that. These kind of emotions are very troublesome. Why? Because it creates so much anxiety and it creates so much of stress. Just the idea of an enemy. And it is the evil eye that leads us to this vision that someone is a friend, someone is an enemy. Now, we do speak of obstacles, we do speak of challenges. However, we don't look at our challenges with hate. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna very clearly says that Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha. So, hate itself, or in another place, he says that attachment and aversion both are challenges. And by regulative practices or regulative principles of practice, we can overcome both attachment and aversion. So we don't feel aversion to our challenges. We are aware and try to avoid us being distracted by those challenges. Aversion is not the quality of a good practitioner, because aversion creates the idea of uh, like and dislike. Whereas awareness just creates the idea of uh, awareness helps the intelligence become more sharp. This is favorable and this is unfavorable. So the unfavorable things can be given up and the favorable things can be accepted. So isn't that duality? In the material world, there will be duality. However, we use duality or we use the situations of duality to focus on a singular subject matter, that is Krishna. And the others who are not well versed with Krishna consciousness, they do not have this facility. They do not have the ability to focus on a singular object of meditation, because bahushakha yanantascha, the intelligence is many forked, many branched. So they cannot be ekagrachit, they cannot be focused on one central object of affection, one and only one central object of affection. So a devotee in this material world of duality finds ways not to be distracted by the unfavorable objects, and using the favorable opportunities to be focused on the universal singular concept of unalloyed devotional service to the one and supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. We have to beware of the evil eye. And what is a foul tongue? The foul tongue is the opportunity of the tongue, or the opportunity that the tongue has to speak ill of others, to speak badly about others, to blaspheme others. So we don't want to the tongue to be engaged in unnecessary activities, and we don't want the eye to be covered up by unwanted situation, by unwanted emotions. Therefore, in Krishna consciousness, we are advised to be alert about these unnecessary challenges or unnecessary situations that become challenges in our life. These unnecessary situations are called as anarthas. Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu is like one of our favorite personalities, especially in Krishna consciousness. And his pastimes are very revealing. Sri Satchinandana Gaura Hari, as is described, he is addressed to lovingly by his devotees, had taken sannyas. And Gauranga Mahaprabhu had come visiting Bengal, especially in Navadvip, Kalna, Panihati, and these places. He wanted to visit these places. The initial attempt was to go to Vrindavan, and when that did not manifest, so he decided to visit Bengal to take the blessings of two of his mothers. And the Chaitanya Bhagavad describes that Lord Chaitanya had two mothers in Navadvip. One was his Janani, the mother who gave him birth, that is Sri Shachi Devi, who is the mother of the entire universe, Jagan Mata. And also he worshipped Mother Ganga, or Ganges, as we say in the English language, as his mother. So because he had spent a lot of time in his childhood and growing up on the banks of the river Ganga, and within her womb, the waters of the river Ganga, on her loving waters, he had spent, or in her loving waters, he had spent a lot of time. And Chaitanya Bhagavat, written by Vrindavan Das Thakur, describes that Lord Chaitanya visited the town of Kulia. Now, in those days, Kulia was a huge, huge township. The reason being, in and around Kulia, the city of Kulia and the suburbs of Kulia resided many, many astute and great scholars, really well versed, well read. In fact, the town of Navadvip and the town of Kulia, the town of Navadvip, where Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu had his residence, and Kulia, which in those days was on the eastern bank of the river Ganga. Today it is on the western bank. You have to cross the river Ganga to get to Kulia in today's times. And the new town of Navadvip. So Kulia and Navadvip were very close to each other. They were like neighboring townships. Um, and that was where great personalities like Maheshwar Visharad, the father of Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya and Vidyavachaspati, and many other great personalities lived in the suburbs of Kulia. One of the suburbs, or let us say another township, was Vidyanagar, right next to Kulia. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had come to Kulia was visiting Kulia because there were so many people requesting him. If there had been Facebook on those in those times, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's account would have received blue ticks like in a day. On Instagram, he would have millions of followers, and all of them were. And if it was being loaded on Instagram, it was live streaming, then you would see so many requests coming from Kulia, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to visit Kulia Gram, and there he danced, and when he danced, it was as if everyone's breathing would stop, and still they would be alive. People did not want their eyes to blink. They did not want to breathe because any movement that would take away or that would blur the vision of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu dancing was intolerable. Chaitanya Bhagavat and Chaitanya Charitamrita describes so gloriously when the golden complexioned Lord with his raised, upraised arms and his lotus feet and his transcendental body and his beautiful shining effulgent face, which itself looked like freshly blooming lotus flowers with his eyes looking like lotus petals and uh, his lips red like the bimbo fruits that is described, like really crimson red. And occasionally, when they would part, when he would chant out Krishna's names, you could see pearl like beautiful teeth. And his voice was deep like thunder and soothing like the fresh rains after a scorching summer heat. He would chant, he would sing, he would dance, and his devotees would be dancing with him, and the general people would come from near and far, and they would surround him, and they would dance and they would chant for hours and hours together, young, old, men, women, all sections of society would be there. And forgetting about their own existences, they would be immersed in the ocean of Krishna Prem. They would be happily diving deep into this ambrosial waters of love of Krishna that was flowing through the wonderful dance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And after hours and hours of dance, when Mahaprabhu would realize that people are tired, they must be hungry, or someone else would seeing that many hours have passed and being concerned about Lord Chaitanya's own personal needs, would request the Lord to stop. The Lord would stop dancing, and then he would sit down um, um, at an offered place. He would sit down, and people would slowly disperse. And then those who wanted to seek his blessings, his audience, would approach him. In Kuliagram, There, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sitting after his wonderful Sankirtan and giving darshan to everyone, one Brahmana, he came there and he grabbed the Lord's lotus feet. And he was crying tears and washing the Lord's lotus feet with his tears. Dvijabale Prabhu Mora Eka Nivedana Achetaha Kahi Yadi Shane Tehamana. My dear Lord, please give me a moment of your time. I have this sincere request to ask of you. And then he put forward his request. I am so sinful that I did not know the glories of devotional service, so I degraded myself by blaspheming the Vaishnavas. I would always make blasphemous statements like, who can be a Vaishnava in Kali Yuga? And what is Kirtan? Oh Lord, when I now remember those sinful activities, my heart constantly burns with repentance. To deliver the entire world, you who are as powerful as a lion have appeared. Please tell me how I can nullify this papa, say papa, this sin, or those sins, the sins of not understanding that when the devotees chant the glories of the holy names, they chant the glories of Krishna and they chant the holy names. It is a special moment. I took it to be ordinary and I would call them names and I would make fun of them. Today I understand that that was a grave mistake. Please, please, dear Lord, save me. Please. And he is not asking the Lord to forgive him, because sometimes the idea is that, my dear Lord, please forgive me. He's asking the Lord to propose, he's asking the Lord to help him understand how to nullify those sins. So he wants to, he's showing his eagerness to not be lazy by simply asking forgiveness, but he wants to work towards being forgiven. And that is what is a devotee. A devotee does not simply seek lazy forgiveness for all the mistakes. A devotee wants to work so that one can be qualified to be forgiven. Why? Because to be able to work, to be able to serve is the supreme most benediction. Service is the very nature of the spirit soul. And service means action, activity. We can never be inactive. So this is a great lesson. Doesn't mean that we cannot offer prayers for forgiveness. We can. We can pray for forgiveness, and also at the same time, we should work so that we become qualified to receive forgiveness. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the Supreme Lord. He is the Paramatma within the heart, externally being the Supreme Lord, and internally within the heart, he is the Paramatma. So both ways he understands sincerity. So outside the body, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in his transcendental beautiful form, and inside the body, he is the Paramatma within the heart. So the Lord smiled and he gave him the remedy. Now, the remedy that he gave is what we would all want to hear. Shunadvija Vishakari ye mukhe bhakshana, she mukhe kari abe amrita grahana. Vishahai jirna deha hoyata mara amrita prabhave ene shune se uttara. So the Lord says, Shunadvija, hey, twice born, O Brahmana, listen to the remedy. Here it is. One who has taken poison must drink nectar with the same mouth. So the evil mouth and the foul mouth and the evil eye, the antidote to this state of existence is being given here. The evil eye and the foul mouth is a state of being poisoned. However, there is powerful, very, very powerful ambrosia that can not just nullify the effect of the severest of poison, but also give us good health. And what is this nectarine ambrosia? The nectarine ambrosia is, with the same mouth, glorify the devotees. Find ways to glorify the Supreme Lord and glorify devotees. So Lord Chaitanya says, one who has taken poison must drink nectar with the same mouth. Thus the effect of the poison will be neutralized, and by the influence of the nectar, his body will become immortal, or her body will become immortal. Now, let me explain the meaning of this. No janiya tumi joto korila nindana, se kevala vishay tumi korila bhojana. Paramamrita ebe Krishna guna nama, niravadhi se mukhe kara tumi pana. All the blasphemous statements that you spoke in ignorance are just like taking poison. So you spoke it in ignorance. There is sincerity in your heart. It was overcome by ignorance, and therefore you spoke it in ignorance. Now you must constantly drink the supreme nectar of chanting the names and qualities of Krishna with the same mouth. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ekantalabham vachaso nupungsam sushlokamauler gunavadamahu shrutescha vidvadhirupa kritayam katha sudhayam upasam prayogam. The highest perfectionist gain of humanity is to engage in discussions of the activities and glories of the pious actor. That is Krishna. Such activities are so nicely arranged in writing by the greatly learned sages that the actual purpose of the year is served by being near them. This is the nectar that must be offered into the ears through the tongue and through understanding proper vision, through the good eye. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered the solution, by the same mouth with which you blaspheme the Vaishnavas, you should glorify the Vaishnavas and also chant the glories of the holy names of Krishna and the glories of Krishna. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "O dear Brahmana, go and compose songs and poetry describing the supremacy of the devotees' glories." So one has to use whatever facilities one has, whatever abilities one has, to drink this ambrosia, this nectar of glorification of the Lord and the Lord's devotees. The glories of Krishna are full of transcendental nectar, and they neutralize the poisonous effects of blasphemy. The Lord says, I am telling you the truth. Those who unknowingly blaspheme Vishnu or the Vaishnavas can be delivered from all sinful reactions if they always glorify Vishnu and the Vaishnavas and never again engage in blasphemy. Even millions of atonements cannot deliver them. But glorification of the Vaishnavas and Lord Vishnu can immediately nullify the sins. So, Brahmana, go and glorify the devotees, and all your sinful reactions will be destroyed. So glorification can be done with the tongue, and another way of glorification is by writing the description. So we can write about the wonderful description of devotees. When the Vaishnavas who were there with Lord Gauranga, they heard this. All of them said, "Jai Jai, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol." Thus, Sri Gaurasundar revealed the essence of all atonements for sinful people who engage in blasphemy. Those sinful people who do not accept this instruction, says Vrindavan's Thakur, and still continue to blaspheme saintly persons, float in an ocean of misery. Lord Gauranga had made everyone float in an ocean of happiness, of love of Krishna, but there's an ocean of misery also. And those who knowingly um, blaspheme, use the tongue to just decry, and use the mind or the ability to understand human nature, to make enemies, and they get this free ticket to float in the ocean of misery. The reason I spoke on this topic today is because today, technically, right now, on the East Coast, is uh, Krishna uh, Chaturthi, the fourth day of the waxing moon. But it is not just Krishna Chaturthi, it is Krishna Ashadha Chaturthi. In the month of Ashad, the fourth day of the, waning moon. I said waxing moon previously, it is a waning moon. Krishna Paksha. For those of us who follow the Gaurabdha calendar, this is the month of Vamana. So Vamana Krishna Chaturthi. Tomorrow is going to be Vamana Krishna Panchami. Panchami is the fifth day of the Krishna Paksh, which means the waning phase of the moon of the month of Vamana, or Ashadha Krishna Panchami. This is considered to be the appearance day of Vakreshwar Pandit, a dear devotee of Lord Chaitanya. He was the incarnation of, he's supposed to be the expansion of one of the closest friends of Srimati Radharani, one of the Astashakis known as Tungavidya. The Gaur Ganadesh Deepika also calls him, also says that he's an expansion of, or he's not different from one of the Chaturvyuhas, Aniruddha, the original four expansions from Lord Baladev in the spiritual realm. Anyways, Tungavidya is expert at musical instruments and dancing, at the musical arts. And as then she appears in Chaitanya Leela as a Vakreshwar Pandit, she dances so beautifully as Vakreshwar Pandit. When Vakreshwar Pandit would dance, the world would stop, the earth would practically stop revolving. Everything would just stop. He had such, he looked so amazingly beautiful as he danced. He was so graceful. It was practically, it seemed as if every pore of his body would be oozing out love for Krishna. His eyes constantly were tearful as he danced. And he would request Lord Chaitanya. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is described that he requested Lord Chaitanya, my dear Lord, please give me 10,000 Gandharvas. Gandharvas are people, one single Gandharva is like all the singers from all times to come, their melody put together is equal to one Gandharva. Gandharvas can really sing well. 10,000 Gandharvas, that is a symphony. And he requests the benediction to have 10,000 Gandharvas with him, so that he would never stop dancing. He wanted such singing of the holy names to take place that he could never stop dancing. And seeing his eagerness, sometimes Lord Gauranga would watch him dance, and sometimes he would dance with him. So when he expressed his desire, Lord Gauranga told him that, oh Vakreshwar, I'm like a bird with one wing. For a bird, flight is very important. It is, in fact, essential for them to be alive, flight. So their wings are very, very essential. So Lord Gauranga says, I'm like a bird with one wing. You are one of my wings. If I had another wing like you, then I would have flown high up into the sky. Lord Gauranga had so much love for Vakreshwar Pandit. Vakreshwar Pandit, at one moment, um, um, he would always spend his time with Lord Gauranga. Therefore, when Lord Gauranga took sannyas, he also went to Jagannath Puri along with Lord Gauranga and took up residence there. Occasionally, he would visit Kulia. He would visit Navadip, Bengal, Kulia. So, on one of his visits to Kulia Gram, he was dancing at a devotee's place. Now, the Chaitanya Bhagavat describes the pastime elaborately. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes it succinctly. So, he was dancing, and Devananda Pandit, who was a great scholar of the Srimad Bhagavatam, a very simple hearted person, well-read person, well-versed. In fact, people loved him for his renditions of Srimad Bhagavatam. I would never ever hurt another person, was very generous, did not have any kind of malice in his heart. So he saw Vakreshwar Pandit dance, and when he saw him dance, something transformed, like a switch was turned on within him, in his consciousness, in his heart. And he felt certain emotions which he had never felt throughout his life. He was in his like mid 40s by then, or even older. So he had never felt those emotions. Maybe he was even in his 50s actually, because he and Srivas Thakur were almost of the same age. Maybe he was a little younger than Srivas Pandit. So he was an elderly person in his late 40s or his early 50s. And for 40 to 50 years of his life, he had never experienced those emotions. And they were so overwhelming that his eyes filled up with tears. He forgot everything else. He forgot who he was. He forgot he had any commitments to keep. He simply stood there and watched Vakreshwar Pandit dance. And Vakreshwar Pandit, it is said that at one point of time, he danced and danced without stopping for 72 hours, for 24 praharas. Ashta prahar is like a day. 24 praharas is like 3 days. 72 hours. And still he wouldn't stop. He had such an attraction for dancing to the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. So he was dancing for hours, and Devanand Pandit stood right there. And slowly a crowd was gathering around Vakreshwar Pandit's transcendental dancing form. And this crowd was being pushed and jostled, and they were kind of enclosing onto Vakreshwar Pandit dancing, and the space where he could dance was getting smaller and smaller. So Devanand Pandit became very concerned. He picked up a stick, and just by waving a stick, he pushed the crowd back. This elderly gentleman single-handedly kept the crowd back so that Vakreshwar Pandit could dance freely. Whenever the crowd would come close, he would push them, he would request them a little sternly. And because the crowd knew him very well, they respected him a lot, they would fall back. And for hours together, in fact, Vakreshwar Pandit danced through the entire evening and late into the night. People were holding up candles, they were holding up lamps so that they could see Vakreshwar Pandit dance. And then Vakreshwar Pandit, he sat down. Devanand Pandit approached him very humbly and fell at his lotus feet. This elderly gentleman fell at his lotus feet and requested him, please train me in this. Please give me your blessings. Accept me in your shelter. The emotions that I've gone through are just amazing. I've never experienced anything like that. Please do that for me. And Vakreshwar Pandit blessed him that, may you have love for Krishna. In fact, sometimes in Bengali it is said, Krishna prema tumi hauka. May you be blessed with love for Krishna in your life. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking to this Brahmana and explaining him the glories of Vaishnava Seva, Devanand Pandit had also come to Kulia because he lived right next door. Um, he lived in the town of Kulia. So he came to visit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He heard a lot about Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and having spent time with Vakreshwar Pandit, he was very eager to meet with Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Since he was quite elderly in age, it was difficult for him to make that journey to Jagannath Puri. So he would always pray that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come to Bengal, to Nadia, and he could have his darshan. And here was the opportunity to. So he came to that assembly, and from a distance, a little distance away, he offered his obeisances to Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And like a chataka bird, like a bumblebee, he simply was looking at the beautiful lotus flower-like face of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu and drinking in that nectar. Gauranga Mahaprabhu noticed him and he called him. He called him towards him. Before this, many years ago, before this incident, many years ago, the Chaitanya Bhagavad describes this was before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even took sannyas. He had come to Kuliagram, and there he saw Devananda Pandit walking with his students, and he said, "This person shall never understand what it means to have love of Krishna. He has committed an offense at the lotus feet of Srivas Thakur. And therefore, Krishna Prem shall never dawn within his heart." What had happened was, during one of his recitations of Srimad Bhagavatam, thousands of people had gathered, and Srivas Thakur, when he heard that Devananda Pandit was reciting Srimad Bhagavat, and he was already well known for his sweet rendition and recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he came to that assembly. And when he heard that beautiful recitation, Srivas Thakur immediately was transported to another level of consciousness, where every word of Srimad Bhagavatam touched him in a deep way, and he was experiencing Krishna. So, without his knowledge, without his unconsciously, he started manifesting symptoms of love of Krishna in the form of tears, and he was practically uh, falling unconscious and calling out for Krishna loudly. So his students, the students of Devananda Pandit who were there in the audience, they picked up Srivas Thakur in that delirious state, and dropped him outside the assembly place at a remote at some distance, which was quite remote. And when Srivas Thakur came back to his external consciousness, he felt a little bit uh, um, uh, uh, unhappy, because uh, that separation for Krishna was there. So he went home and took shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam at home. And again, he felt inspired, transcendentally inspired. But Lord Gauranga, who at that point of time had not even appeared. This was before Lord Gauranga's appearance. Srivas Pandit was young man. Devanand Pandit was a young man. Lord Gauranga is a Paramatma. So he took note that Devananda Pandit had not stopped his students from throwing Srivas Thakur out of the assembly. And he was not happy with that. So therefore, many years ago, when Gauranga Mahaprabhu was, along with Srivas Thakur, he was going down the streets of Kulia, he saw Devananda Pandit and he spoke those harsh words. And Devananda Pandit felt very bad, because by then Gauranga Mahaprabhu also had become well known as a scholar and also as a devotee. So he felt very much concerned that Nimai Pandit was thinking about him such, but he did not remember that incident. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called him at Kulia again, when he had come back as a sannyasi and he danced, he said, "Vakreshwar Pandit is my heart. He and I are non-different. Whatever he has spoken shall be true. Because you have pleased, because you served him, and uh, knowingly or unknowingly, previously you had let Srivas Thakur be thrown out of the assembly. So that mistake is now forgiven because of Akreshwar Pandit's affection towards you. And because you have such respect for Akreshwar. And I am bound by the love of my devotees. And therefore, since he has given you the benediction that you shall receive Krishna Prem, you shall receive Krishna Prem. And after that, Devananda Pandit, he went up to Srivas Thakur and also sought his forgiveness too. And Lord Gauranga was very happy with Devananda Pandit's humility. And he blessed him. And that every time you recite the Srimad Bhagavatam, speak as if every word of Srimad Bhagavatam is simply glorifying Krishna, because that is what Srimad Bhagavatam is. That was the intent of Vyasadeva. He wanted every word of Srimad Bhagavatam to glorify Krishna. And Devanand Pandit, after that, would always find every word of Srimad Bhagavatam to be giving him transcendental happiness. So tomorrow is the appearance day of Akreshwar Pandit, and I took this opportunity to speak on this topic. So Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur in Chaitanya Bhagavat says, Chaitanya Ragyaye Manay Vedasara Sukhe Se Jana Hoy Bhava Sindhu Para. Those persons who accept the instructions of Lord Chaitanya as the essence of the Vedas happily cross the ocean of material nescience, material existence. So, what is that instruction? Chaladvija karagiya bhaktera varnana tabe se tumhara sab papa vimochana. My dear Brahmana, go and describe the glories of the devotees and the glories of Krishna, and all your sinful reactions will be destroyed. So this is the remedy for the evil eye and the foul tongue. The remedy is to constantly glorify Krishna and Krishna's devotees, to constantly chant the holy names, rendering service to the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord's devotees. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'm so sorry, I went 11 minutes over time.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for another wonderful class today. So one comment is like that, evil eye and about the evil eye and the evil tongue. This topic could fit in any audience, irrespective of religious belief, culture, or country. If we just think about this, that we are actually bound by evil eye and evil tongue. So especially, actually I checked in Bible, in Romans, John, Corinthians, everywhere is saying that we need to clean ourselves. Prabhu, you mentioned this nicely. This one word, cleansing, can actually lead us to the path of spiritual life. Thank you, Prabhu, for enlightening us. So one question is it better to live in a solitary place to avoid seeing unexpected things and stop from saying anything bad about others?
Okay, the question is it good to live in a solitary place, because then we are actually cutting off any opportunity to see wrongdoings around us and thus speak bad about others. I think as an answer, I think the correct question would be, would we be qualified to stay in a solitary place? And most probably the answer is no, because our mind is very dangerous, especially, or it behaves in very, very dangerous ways, especially when we are in a solitary place. However, the place is important. More important is what is our consciousness at any given place or time. So a devotee or a person who's well trained in the devotional science, in the practice of Krishna consciousness, would find oneself to be one with Krishna and one with the holy name, and thus be feeling or thus seem to be in a very solitary place, even in the midst of the greatest crowd. So we must try and work on a consciousness as well. And since it is easy to be trained up in an atmosphere where we have good teachers, we have people who are mentors, people who are well-wishers. So it is good to be in association till a time where we have such advanced level of consciousness where we are so Krishna conscious, we are so aware of Krishna, and we are so much aware of ourselves as part and parcel of Krishna, rendering service to Krishna, who is always surrounded by his devotees. So we are so much in that consciousness. We have trained ourselves to be in that state of consciousness that even if we are in a solitary place, still we feel Krishna's presence, and still we feel to be in the midst of the devotees who are with Krishna. And even if we are in a crowd, we have the same experience. So briefly, the answer is Krishna consciousness is an internal state of existence for a conditioned soul. Pure Krishna consciousness is what we are aspiring for. So if it is helpful for you, you can try it out in a solitary place. Generally, we have been advised to stay in very good association. Externally, you see, conditioned souls, we need external association. So internally, we can always, if we practice Krishna consciousness very sincerely, that at one point of time, we will also have internal association, where we can actually see the Lord's pastimes manifest directly, as so many great souls have done that. And that is the existence where one is no longer conditioned by the body and no longer conditioned by external circumstances. So yeah, that is my answer.
Nicely answered, Prabhu. Thank you very much. So one appreciation from the president of ISKCON Scarborough. She says, we feel very fortunate to have your association during the lockdown time. Thank you for all your amazing classes. Hope we'll be able to get your personal associations soon.
Thank you so much, Mother Dwaraka. You are always very kind and compassionate towards all of us. And we are indeed very, very grateful for all the affection that you shower on us and for all the services that you're rendering to Srila Prabhupada and to our mission. So thank you so very much.
Prabhu, you have spoken quite well.
I'm sorry.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You have spoken quite well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And when the temple reopens, I just request you to come to the temple and enlighten us more and more.
I accept your order as my life's mission, and I will try to execute your order.
And that's quite good. The quality of the lecture was quite good. Nice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Another for the benefit of the devotees, Prabhu, could you give the reference of the first part you said about Tasmoi Suvadresu? Is it from Bhagavatam?
Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. Let me see if I can pick it out for you.
While Prabhu is checking, if anyone has any question, you can actually ask directly, or you can raise your hand. Prabhu would be happy to answer your question. at least one or two questions. Do you have time? Prabhu?
Sure. I'm sorry, it is from the second canto, 4th chapter, 15th verse.
So it's Srimad Bhagavatam 2, 4, 15.
15. Tasmai Subhadra Shravase Namo Namaha.
Thank you for so wonderful. You can memorize this text, right? It would be nice to memorize.
Yes, definitely.
Anyone has any question, Prabhus or Matajis, before we can close? Thank you, Prabhu, for your association, your wonderful class, and your classes are always good. And we'd like to thank each and every one of the devotees who have been attending our classes every Sunday and giving your valuable association to stay well. And again, our respects and gratitude to each and every one of you from Toronto. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaurav Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.